Joe Biden is accusing President Trump of putting pressure on Ukraine to investigate Biden's son, Hunter. In return, President Trump is accusing Joe Biden of putting pressure on Ukraine to stop the investigation against his son for corruption. Now, this is a very interesting case, especially because Biden's son, Hunter, could be CIA. He's hanging around with a lot of CIA people, very important people, and his whole background just screams CIA. So, Trump admitted on Sunday of doing this phone call with the new president of Ukraine. And the admission was that corruption was discussed, especially the corruption or alleged corruption of Joe Biden and his son. Now, the accusation, of course, is that Trump was out of line and putting too much pressure on Ukraine in terms of military aid, and that this was a maneuver to hurt the Bidens before the United States election in 2020. So then, of course, we had this Paul Manafort situation. Manafort, he was an important person in the Trump campaign, even though Trump now says that this person barely worked there. And Manafort, what he did in Ukraine wasn't, was very interesting. And now Manafort is in jail. And it's possible that the Democrats had something to do with that the Democrats were running around in Ukraine or contacting people in Ukraine to find dirt on Manafort to hurt Trump. Now, Biden admitted in January of 2018 at the Council on Foreign Relations meeting, admitted that he put pressure on Ukraine. It was about $1 billion. And he's describing the negotiations. He said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion unless you fire the investigator. That's who's after my son. So now we look at Hunter Biden, the son. He has a degree from Georgetown University, which has seen many people that went on to important positions in government or in the security, any sort of security functions, national security. And Hunter also has a doctorate in law from Yale Law School. So possibly he is a member of one of the infamous Yale secret societies, possibly even Skull and Bones, which brought us the OSS intelligence agency and also the CIA. And it was President George W. Bush, member of Skull and Bones, whose father was Skull and Bones and whose father was also CIA director, George W. Bush, who made Hunter Biden director of Amtrak. And Hunter also is a member of the board of the National Democratic Institute, which belongs to the National Endowment for Democracy, NED, which has been traditionally associated with the CIA. And so the Ukraine would automatically suspect Hunter, to work for the CIA. There was one incident with the Marine Reserve when Hunter got into trouble for a positive cocaine test. In 2014, Hunter became a board member of Burisma Holdings, Ukrainian energy giant, one of the leading energy corporations over there. And in February 2016, Joseph Kofer Black also became a board member of Burisma Holdings. And Kofer Black was director of the Counter-Terrorist Center of the CIA during the George Bush administration. And he was also heavily involved in anti-terror in a diplomatic fashion, anti-terrorism in a diplomatic fashion. So this is an interesting combination of people. Hunter Biden from Yale and Kofer Black from the CIA. And in 2014, the Ukraine started to investigate Burisma, especially the owner of Burisma, possible corruption. And then in 2016, at the time Vice President of the United States, Biden, he threatened the Ukraine with $1 billion of loan guarantees, and it was, get rid of this investigator who's after my son, or you're not getting the money. So then, the Ukraine caved, and they removed the investigator. They got a new guy, and this new guy said there was nothing corrupt about what the Bidens had done. That's what he said, at least. But the investigator said he's going to inform the United States Attorney General Bill Barr, inform him about the payments for the board members of Burisma. So the IRS could look into that and see if Hunter Biden paid his taxes. We're going to be looking forward to that answer. And so then, in 2019, Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, again, put pressure on Ukraine, and they're digging around in Ukraine to see if there was anything corrupt about the Bidens. And Giuliani's also looking into the Paul Manafort situation, whether or not Democrats were chasing for dirt over there, and possibly looking into what those Democrats might have paid for that dirt, or what the Democrats might have done for that dirt. It's an interesting parallel to the Russiagate accusation against President Trump, that infamous meeting that I think it was a Trump Tower meeting with a Russian woman, where supposedly an offer was made, we could get you email dirt or any sort of dirt on Hillary Clinton, and would you be interested in that? And now the Russiagate discussion is, of course, whether or not the Trump campaign made any sort of promises back or guarantees back. Now, isn't it interesting to see that all these politicians work for the exact same superpower, and they're on the same team, basically? I mean, the Bidens, you know, the nice Democrats, and then, of course, the son Hunter, he's hanging around these hardcore CIA people, and he's hanging around in Ukraine, doing all sorts of business, and who knows what else. But still, you got Trump in this sort of fight with Biden. You got the Republicans fighting the Democrats, even though they're all in the same circles and they all make same kind of business deals, and they're all, of course, hooked into the CIA and into this national security intelligence apparatus. So it'd be interesting to see how much Hunter Biden is involved with the CIA, and also how much the Trump administration is willing to push this issue to look into Hunter. Because at some point the CIA might say, okay, you've looked enough into this. If you look any further, it's going to touch national security thingies, and of course we don't want to disrupt any CIA operation, do we? We'll be looking further into the situation and keep you posting, keep you updated. We'll see if this is going to be a bigger topic in the 2020 election, and if this is going to continue into another Trump administration. You know, we're going to be seeing a lot more of this, but of course, if Democrats threaten Republicans and Republicans threaten Democrats, each side has a gun pointed at the other side, and each side is working for the same people, even though at some point somebody might get shoved under the bus, such as Paul Manafort. And if you look at Paul Manafort's past, it kind of looks like your average CIA asset, but of course we don't know exactly if Paul Manafort was CIA or not. But you can look at his life and what he's done, especially overseas, and you can decide for yourself how likely or unlikely it is that Paul Manafort has had some kind of relationship with the CIA. I mean, if you look at this man, he attended Georgetown University, same university that Hunter Biden visited. And, yeah, then Manafort worked for the President Ford Committee, worked under James A. Baker III, coordinator for the Ronald Reagan presidential campaign, deputy political director, Republican National Committee, appointed associate director of the Presidential Personnel Office at the White House, board of directors of the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, and Manafort was also an advisor to the presidential campaigns of George H.W. Bush and Bob Dole. You tell me how likely it is that Paul Manafort has had some dealings with the CIA. We'll keep you updated and posted on this channel. Please subscribe, comment down below, and tell us what you think, and spread this video if you find it illuminating.